Most people think the hard part is saving $20,000. It's not. The hard part is the week after you hit that number, when your brain starts telling you that you've earned a reward, that you've been grinding long enough, that it's finally time to live a little. That whisper is where wealth goes to die. I've watched people save for 3 years, hit 20,000, and be back to 4,000 6 months later. New car, nicer apartment, a vacation they posted on Instagram, and then back to square one, except now with higher fixed costs they can't easily cut. The money's gone, the lifestyle stayed, and they're starting over just with more expensive habits. Here's what nobody tells you about $20,000. It's not a finish line, it's a fork. One path turns that 20,000 into 350,000 over 30 years without you doing much of anything. The other path turns it into monthly payments on something you'll be bored of in 2 years. And the difference between those two paths comes down entirely to what you decide in the next 14 days. So let's talk about what you actually do. In order. No shortcuts. First question, and this one matters more than anything else. Do you have high-interest debt, credit cards, personal loans, anything sitting above 7%? Because if you do, that's where the money goes before anything else. Not into investments, not into savings, into killing the debt first. Here's the math people avoid running. $12,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest minimum payments, only you'll spend over 2 decades paying it off. And by the time it's gone, you'll have paid the bank close to $15,000 in interest on top of the original balance. You borrowed $12,000. You paid back $27,000. That's not a debt. That's a subscription to being broke that you forgot to cancel. Now someone's always going to push back on this. What about investing early? Doesn't compound interest offset it? No, not even close. You are paying a guaranteed 22% to earn a potential 10%. That is not a strategy. That is volunteering to lose money every single month while telling yourself you're building wealth. I saw this play out with someone who had about $16,000 saved and $10,000 in credit card debt at 20%. He put $8,000 into index funds right away because time in the market, right, and kept making minimum payments on the cards. 2 years later, the market was up. His investments had gained around $5,000, but he'd paid $6,000 in credit card interest during those same 2 years. His actual net position was $1,000 worse than when he started. 2 years of investing and he was behind. Because he never did the real math. Pay off anything above 7% first. It's the only guaranteed return you'll ever find. No volatility, no risk. Just an instant locked-in gain the moment you eliminate the interest. Debt is gone. Now here's where most people make the second mistake. They think they're ready to invest everything. They're not. There's one more step, and skipping it will cost you far more than it saves you. Emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of actual living expenses sitting liquid, untouched in a high-yield savings account. Not in the market. Not in a regular checking account earning nothing. Right now, high-yield savings accounts are paying around 4 to 5%. That's not nothing. That's your emergency fund working while it waits. Here's why this isn't optional. Your car needs $1,300 in repairs. You don't have $1,300 liquid because it's all invested. Now you've got 3 choices. Sell investments potentially at a loss and eat the taxes. Put it on a credit card at 22%. Or just don't fix the car and hope it holds together. Every single option is bad. And now you're making financial decisions from a place of panic instead of a place of planning. That panic is expensive. It's what turns otherwise smart people into people who sell low and buy high. The emergency fund isn't a passive savings account. It's the thing that keeps every other financial decision rational. It's what lets you stay invested when the market drops 30%, because you know you don't need to touch that money. For most people, the target is somewhere between $8,000 and $20,000 depending on your situation. Single renting, stable job, 3 months is probably fine. Mortgage kids variable income, 6 months minimum. Keep it in a separate account so you're not tempted to treat it like spending money. Now, this is where it actually gets interesting. Debt's cleared, emergency fund is set, you've got somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 left. This is where real wealth building starts, and most people overthink it completely. Open a Roth IRA, max it out. The contribution limit sits around $7,500. If you're under 50 and under the income threshold, you can put in the full amount. Do it before anything else. Here's why the Roth IRA is the single best financial vehicle most Americans have access to. Everything that grows inside it comes out completely tax-free. Not tax-deferred, tax-free. There's a difference that will cost you or save you tens of thousands of dollars depending on which side of it you end up on. Run the numbers. You're 25. You put $7,500 into a Roth IRA today. It grows at 10% annually. By 65, that single contribution is worth roughly $340,000. You owe the government zero on that growth. In a taxable brokerage account, you'd be writing a check for somewhere between $50,000 and $65,000 in capital gains taxes on the same money. You're paying tax on the seed. You get to keep the entire tree. Roth IRA is open. Now, what do you actually buy inside it? This is where people derail themselves. They start researching individual stocks. They ask Reddit which company is about to explode. They read earnings reports at midnight, convincing themselves they've spotted something the market missed. Stop. Close the browser. You're about to do something so boring it almost feels wrong. Buy a broad index fund. VTI tracks the entire US stock market. VOO tracks the S&P 500. Both have expense ratios of about 3 basis points, essentially free to own. Historically, the S&P 500 has returned roughly 10% per year on average over the last century. And looking at rolling 20-year periods going back decades, it has consistently recovered and delivered positive returns, even through crashes, recessions, and periods that felt like the end of the world at the time. You are not going to find the next great company by reading quarterly filings at midnight. The people who actually identify those companies early, work at their competitors, and have access to information you don't, and using it is illegal anyway. Everyone else is guessing and calling it research. Buy the index. Own a small piece of 500 companies. Let the people running those companies figure out how to make money. Your only job is to not interfere. Let me show you what not interfering actually looks like in dollar terms. $20,000 S&P 500 index fund, 10% annually. After 10 years, $52,000. After 20 years, $135,000. After 30 years, $349,000. You turn $20,000 into nearly $350,000 by doing essentially nothing for 3 decades. No stock picking, no market timing, just patience. Now add $500 a month on top of that initial $20,000. After 30 years at 10%, you're looking at $1.5 million. You contributed roughly $200,000 total. The market contributed the rest. Your money earned 6.5 times what you actually put in. Under a 4% withdrawal framework, $1.5 million could support roughly $60,000 a year in retirement without drawing down the principal in most historical scenarios. That's a full salary from a decision you make today, repeated monthly for 30 years. And here's the cost of waiting that nobody talks about clearly enough. Same $20,000, but you wait 5 years before investing. After 25 years instead of 30, you end up with $217,000 instead of $349,000. That 5-year delay cost you $132,000, roughly 4 extra years of working before you can retire. Your 25-year-old self decides to wait. Your 60-year-old self works until 64 instead of 60. That's not an abstraction. That's actual time. I want to stop here for a second because I think this is important. A few years back, I had about $19,000 saved. Took me almost 2 years. And instead of doing what I just described, I froze. The market felt high. Everyone online was calling for a crash. So I waited, kept the money in a savings account, earning basically nothing, telling myself I was being disciplined. I waited 7 months. The market went up 12% during those 7 months. I missed 12% of gains on $19,000, about $2,300, by doing nothing, by trying to be smart, by letting the fear of buying at the wrong time stop me from buying at all. The irony is that even if I'd bought right before a correction, I would have recovered within a year or two and still come out ahead. I learned that lesson the expensive way. Now let's talk about what actually destroys people at this stage. Market timing. Someone sees the index near all-time highs, thinks it has to come down soon, decides to wait for a crash. Here's the problem, and this is where it gets interesting. The market spends the majority of its time at or near all-time highs. That's what an upward trending market looks like. If you only invested when prices weren't near highs, you'd be sitting on the sidelines almost constantly. Historical data makes this point brutally clear. Even the worst possible market timer, someone who invested every single year but always managed to buy at the absolute peak right before every major crash, from the 1970s through 2013, still ended up with over $1 million. Because they stayed invested. They didn't panic and sell. Time and compounding did the work despite every terrible entry point. The person waiting for the perfect moment, still waiting, still in cash, still explaining why now isn't the right time. Miss just 10 trading days over a 20-year period, specifically the 10 best days, which almost always happen right after the worst crashes, and your return get cut nearly in half. 10 days out of roughly 5,000 total trading days. You cannot predict those days. The only way to capture them is to already be in the market when they happen, which means staying in, always. Now lifestyle inflation. This is where $20,000 quietly disappears, and most people never figure out why. You hit the number, you feel successful. You've been driving the same car for 5 years, living in the same apartment, telling yourself you'd upgrade once you had money saved. And now you have money saved. So the brain starts the math. You deserve a nicer place, a better car, a real vacation. You've earned it. Maybe you have. But here's the exchange rate nobody shows you. $380 a month for a nicer car? Sounds reasonable. Over 30 years, that $380 a month invested at 10% instead is $860,000. You're not trading a monthly payment for a nicer car. You're trading nearly $1 million in retirement wealth for something you'll be completely used to in 6 months and bored of in 3 years. The apartment version is the same math. $400 more per month for a nicer place. Over 30 years, $900,000. Was the extra square footage worth $900,000? And here's what makes this really insidious. Nobody upgrades once. 3 years after the car, you're eyeing newer models, telling yourself you've earned another upgrade. Every cycle of that loop costs you hundreds of thousands in compounded wealth. It's not one decision, it's a pattern. And the pattern is what keeps people working into their late 60s while the portfolio never quite gets there. Let's talk about how strategy shifts depending on where you are in life, because the approach isn't identical at every age. In your 20s, time is your biggest asset. For many people at this stage, an allocation around 90% stocks and 10% bonds, or even heavier on stocks, depending on your risk tolerance, makes sense. You can watch your portfolio drop 40% in a crash and not panic, because you don't need that money for decades. Max the Roth IRA every year without fail. Keep the emergency fund lean. Volatility is only scary if you need the money soon. You don't. In your 30s, more income usually means more obligations. For most people, bumping the emergency fund to 6 months makes sense here. Keep prioritizing the Roth IRA and index funds, but start thinking about education savings if you have kids. An allocation around 80% stocks, 20% bonds, works for many people at this stage, though your specific timeline and risk tolerance should guide that more than any rule of thumb. In your 40s, urgency increases. A rough benchmark many financial planners use: by 50, you should have roughly 5 times your annual income saved. If you're behind, this $20,000 is more critical than ever. Max retirement accounts. Look into catch-up contributions. A general starting point for many people in their 40s is shifting toward a 60-40 split between stocks and bonds. But again, this depends heavily on when you plan to retire and how much volatility you can stomach. The reason allocations shift with age isn't because stocks get riskier as you get older. It's because your time horizon shortens. A 25-year-old can ride out a market crash and wait a decade for recovery. A 55-year-old who needs that money in 10 years cannot. You shift towards stability not because you're being conservative, but because you're being realistic about time. One more option worth understanding, not as a replacement for the index fund strategy, but as an alternative path if you want it. Real estate. With $20,000, you've got enough for an FHA down payment on a property in the right price range. 3.5% down on a $150,000 property is about $5,000 plus. Closing costs brings you closer to $12,000 to $16,000 total. If you house hack buy a small multi-unit, live in one unit, rent the others, the rental income can offset most or all of your mortgage while you build equity. It's more hands-on than index funds. It's not passive. But for people who want a more active role in building wealth, the leverage combined with rental income can be a legitimate accelerator. Just go in clear-eyed about what it actually involves, maintenance tenants vacancies, before treating it like a shortcut. Here's the full framework, clean and simple. Step 1, pay off anything above 7% interest. Guaranteed return, 0 risk. Step 2, build an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5%. Step 3, max the Roth IRA at $7,500. Buy VTI or VOO. Don't touch it. Step 4, anything remaining goes into a taxable brokerage account in the same index funds. Set up automatic monthly contributions and never stop. That's the entire plan. It doesn't require stock research. It doesn't require market timing. It doesn't require a finance degree or an advisor charging you 1% of your portfolio every year to tell you things you already know. It requires doing something boring consistently for a long time. The people who build real wealth aren't the ones who found the hot stock tip or timed the market perfectly. They're the ones who opened a Roth IRA in their mid-20s, bought an index fund, and kept adding to it every single month for 3 decades while everyone around them was chasing something more exciting. They drove the paid-off car while coworkers financed BMWs. They kept buying index funds when the market dropped 30%, and everyone was saying the system was broken. They ignored the crypto tip from the guy at the party. They didn't switch strategies every time something didn't work immediately. They were boring for 30 years, and then they had options that nobody around them had. Your $20,000 is the beginning of that story, or it's the beginning of a different one. Better car, nicer apartment, a vacation that disappears from your feed in 2 weeks, the seed or the spending. That's the actual choice. Open the Roth IRA, buy the index fund, set up automatic contributions. Then go live your life while compounding does what it's been doing quietly for 100 years, making patient, boring people wealthy while everyone else stays broke trying to be interesting.